This convention not all about Bill Clinton. There is President Obama. He arrived in Charlotte yesterday while crews dismantled the original location for the speech he's giving tonight. That would be the Bank of America Stadium. Outdoors, 73,000 seats. Now, those plans scrapped because of the threat of thunderstorms, at least if you believe the DNC. President instead is going to speak at the Time Warner Cable Arena, which is less than 1/3 of the size. The campaign denying speculation that they were actually worried about filling the stadium. And for more on that and more, let's head back to Charlotte, and we're joined live by Richard French. Hi, Rich.
Well, thank you, Andrew. We're joined here by a good friend, Congressman Himes. He can't get rid of me even when he goes to the convention in North Carolina. Just one little item on the optics. As you know, tonight was supposed to be in a giant outdoor arena 4 years ago in Denver. Everybody remembers it, also the Gothic columns. But I've spoken to a lot of people who think that it actually, he might get lucky in that there'll be a more intimate feel. What do you think?
Well, I'm actually sad they moved it indoors. Probably a smart thing to do. There have been some showers today that have been pretty tough.
Yep.
You know, there's just, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who had tickets who are not going to be able to get into the arena to see him. And, you know, I don't care what party you are. When you get in to see a president, particularly a historic president, that's a memorable moment. So I'm kind of sad they did, but it's probably the prudent thing to do.
Last night, I want to talk about tonight, but last night, Bill Clinton owned this room. And the embrace at the end, you know, some people made a joke. It almost looked like Obama's trying to burp him at the end. It was that close of an embrace. How much help did Bill Clinton do for Barack Obama last night?
You know, I actually think last night was a real turning point. It is, and this is probably a little bit of a criticism of my party. It was the first time that somebody of significant stature stood up and addressed the issues in a detailed and compelling way and said, you know what you heard in Tampa was not accurate. You know, all the talk of mom and country and whatnot disguises a very, very tough ahistorical way of thinking about government's role in people's lives. And Clinton made that case beautifully. And, you know, this crowd obviously has an awful lot of very good memories of him. He's a master of his craft. And so I actually think it was a turning point. The level of excitement, I don't think you saw anything like that at Tampa. The level of excitement was palpable, and it wasn't just here. I mean, it was around the country that people said, wow, that is really something.
You know what's funny? In prime time last night, there was two principal addresses we heard. Ms. Warren, the Senate candidate from Massachusetts, and obviously President Clinton. But there were two different messages. Elizabeth Warren, brilliant woman, but she led a visceral attack into not just Wall Street, the financial sector, and also the motivation she attributed to him. Bill Clinton did a different approach, that you got to work with business here. In some ways, it's not only a different message, but a little bit of a confused message. Which one do you think the president takes to those middle-class voters out there he's trying to convince to keep him on the job?
Yeah, you know, I didn't get a chance to see all of Elizabeth Warren's speech, but Elizabeth Warren has never said that corporations are inherently evil. Now, remember her background. She has spent a lot of time studying the tricks and the traps that credit card companies, that you know, mortgage brokers and whatnot do to really screw up the futures of an awful lot of people in this country. And you know, you only need to go back 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think anybody in this party begrudges honest, hardworking business people their success. In fact, I would venture to guess that the majority of the people in this room actually work for companies of integrity. And so I'm not sure it's quite as stark as you said. That said, look, there's no getting around the fact that this party, you know, like the other party, has a base, it has moderates and whatnot. And, you know, Bill Clinton, obviously, he has always sort of, you know, the classic triangulation. He's always been a guy about finding the common ground and getting something done. And that was, by the way, a very powerful message last night. He pointed out that during his administration, as brutal as they were on him, and they impeached the man, he never grew to hate them. And I think he was calling on all of us, and in particular the more aggressive Republicans, to say, remember that. The country got
hated maybe
done.
a few of them.
Not publicly, though.
Let's make this retail politics, because you have a district, we were talking before we started, Trumbull's a perfect example, and Fairfield, town they're up, you won by 1 vote. That middle-class white voter, and right now the polls show that white guy's breaking 58%. For Mitt Romney, even though he comes from the private equity world. And when you think about the blue-collar labor guy, the GI Bill, that's the Democratic wheelhouse. What has to happen to narrow that gap and get that voter to vote the Democratic ticket instead of going for Mitt Romney and down the Republican line?
Well, we need to tell a story, and that story is pretty simple, and I think Bill Clinton started to tell it yesterday, which is that if you are so wealthy that you live in a gated community. You're never going to need to worry about borrowing money for college, you know, getting a little bit of assistance on your health care. If this is a universe that treats you that you don't ever need a leg up, the other party is offering a world of you're on your own. The vast majority of Americans understand that it may be the railway they commute in to get to the office. It may be the highways that their businesses use to distribute their products. It may be a student loan that we want interest rates to be low on. This is the party of standing up for those things that allow the middle class, first of all, to remain a middle class. And remember, the middle class is hanging on by its fingernails these days. I think eventually, in the next 2 months, the middle class in this country is going to recognize that one party is standing up for their interests and the other one is standing up for a much, much smaller sliver of this country.
Let me ask a couple numbers questions. In Tampa, there was a negligible bump after it, maybe a point here. What's the number you think they will and need to get, the Democrats, that is coming out of here?
You know, I'm not enough of a political pundit to be able to really, to answer that question. You know, obviously what needs to happen in places like Florida and Ohio. And, you know, at Connecticut, I wish this weren't true. It would be fun to be a swing state, but Connecticut is obviously not a swing state today. And so, you know, I think we need to continue to tell the story you just asked about, which is we need to ask most Americans to think about who's going to stand up for education, who's going to stand up to make sure our veterans, you know, get the kind of care that they should do. Yeah, that stuff costs money. You know, who's going to reach across the aisle? Bill Clinton was a guy who reached across the aisle. That's the story we got to continue to tell.
And before I wrap, numbers, no matter what comes out of here, it'll still probably be in the margin of error. The thing's close. I got the sense from a lot of folks here, until this week, they had a sense, he's going to win. He's speaking about Barack Obama. You've spoken on the national level to the DCCC, DNC. They think this thing is a toss-up. The other side's got more money, and they've got more money with less restrictions. It's going to be a dogfight, isn't it, between now and November, right?
Look, there's not a poll out there that shows this thing being anything other than very close. So yes, it's going to be a dogfight. And nobody should think that they are, you know, have a commanding lead at this point in the game. There's still, what do we got, 63 or so days to go. A lot can happen in 63 days. So no, this is going to be very, very close. No question about it.
And as my guest knows, the top of the ticket definitely matters. Congressman, thank you so much. I appreciate it, definitely. Andrew, back to you.
All right, Rich, enjoy the convention tonight. We'll check in with you at 10 o'clock when we come back live on FiOS and RNN with our convention coverage. Let's bring it back here. We're talking about President Obama, his speech tonight. Give me one thing, one point that the president absolutely positively has to hit home tonight. Both of you jump in all at once.
I think there are three things that he has to do that are interrelated. Number
one, give
one,
me three things. That's
he
fine.
needs to make sure that people understand that he's the best path for the future, as President Bill Clinton said, despite the fact that there's been, you know, a small progress, if you want to call it that way. Number two, he needs to make sure that he really is able to motivate those voters, and naturally will vote for him, like Latino voters, but they need to be motivated to get out and vote. And the third point is he needs to get back some of the voters who vote for him in 2008, but it's not so clear that they will vote for him this time, like the female vote and younger voters.
Dominic, you give me fourth?
We've heard it all week. One, the message is going to be Republicans and trickle down does not work. That's what got us into this mess. We've already heard that. Number two, to use a football metaphor, if you will, the country is at the 50-yard line, and I need the 4 more years to take us down into the goal line and to score this touchdown, just like the days of Bill Clinton. That will be the message.
4 more years, 4 more downs, a football thing. Somebody was watching the football game last night, clearly.
And I was. And that was a problem for the Democrats, because somebody who follows politics, I was watching the Giants and Cowboys before I turned to Bill Clinton.
Just everybody remember, you know, everybody was talking about Clinton and his abilities. Lest we forget, Barack Obama, very skilled at these sort of speeches. Keep this conversation going online. We urge you head to our Facebook page or Twitter to sound off. What do you want to hear from President Obama? We will be right back with more RFL after a break.
People feel like the system is rigged against them. And here's the painful part. They're right. The system is rigged. Look around. Oil companies guzzle down billions in profits. Billionaires pay lower tax rates than their secretaries. And Wall Street CEOs, the same ones who wrecked our economy and destroyed millions of jobs, still strut around Congress, no shame, demanding favors and acting like we should thank them. Does anyone here have a problem with that?